Emil Johansson just won his 4th Red Bull Joyride a couple weeks ago, his 13th Crankworx win, continuing his winning streak. Since he won his first Joyride in 2019, he hasn't lost a Crankworx event he has competed in. This level of dominance has never really been seen before in slopestyle, and it's caused many people to say that Emil Johansson is the most winningest Crankworx rider of all time, or even saying that he's the greatest slopestyle rider of all time. All that may be true, but I just wanted to pump the brakes a little bit and let's put some perspective on that statement. It's kind of awesome that slopestyle has come to a point in a sport where we can actually have this conversation. We have 2 riders, Emil Johansson and Brandon Semenuk, and we can actually find out who is the greatest of all time. We can debate, and honestly, it's a much harder debate than I originally thought when I first started researching for this video. Emil Johansson may be the most winningest Crankworx rider of all time. I still think Brandon Semenuk is the greatest rider of all time. And for many reasons, as we'll discuss in this video, please watch this thing all the way through so you can hear my argument. I did a lot of research for this, and I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments. Anyone who's watched Emil Johansson ride is instantly impressed by his clean style and his huge bag of tricks. Especially his cleanliness and lines and stuff. It's very reminiscent of Brandon Semenuk. They both have a very similar competing style, landing super technical combinations and tricks and landing them cleaner and more perfectly, and sometimes with bigger amplitude than anyone else is doing. Many can easily point out that right now, Emil Johansson does tricks that Brandon Semenuk never did in contest runs or just simply has never done. And they would be correct, but I don't think that's a fair comparison when you compare 2 riders that really competed in 2 different eras. I know they overlapped a little bit, but Brandon pretty much retired after Emil's first or second year in the Crankworx World Tour. But comparing tricks between these 2 riders is super hard because every era builds off the tricks from the era before it. For instance, in like 2005, it was a big deal to do a tail whip, whereas in the next era, backflip double whips or double trucks, they became, during like Brandon's time period, became more important. And then building off of that, now we're getting into windshield wipers and Cork 720 bar spins and twisters and all sorts of stuff. And so we can't really compare tricks. What we can compare is both of these riders, both Emil and Brandon, were at the peak of what was possible on a bike during their time period. Emil is definitely doing that right now. He's doing tricks that nobody else is doing, and he's the one raising the bar for what everyone else has to do. And Brandon was the exact same way during his era. Because of this, the tricks are so hard to compare. My argument will mostly focus on the phrase the most winningest slopestyle rider ever, or the most winningest Crankworx rider ever, as posted by this Pinkbart article. This is what honestly mostly sparked this. What qualifies as a slopestyle win? And to get into that, we need to do a bit of a history lesson on the history of slopestyle. What is Crankworx? Crankworx says that the first festival was held in Whistler, British Columbia in 2004. Whistler would be the only consistent stop until around 2015 in the Crankworx tour, I guess. And that's when the FNB World Tour, or the Freeride Mountain Bike Association, that World Tour merged with the Crankworx to become the Crankworx FNB World Tour. And that's what we know today, and so on and so forth. Now, this is important if you want to say who is the most winningest slopestyle athlete ever, because you have to account Crankworx wins and FNBA World wins, because they were not always the same thing. Now, to clarify, Emil Johansson has more Crankworx wins. I'm not trying to take that from him or anything. That is 100% true. But where did Brandon's other wins come from? And this is where we need to talk about the FNBA World Tour. In 2010, the FNBA was founded to create a weighted scoring system to figure out who was the best slopestyle athlete in the world that year. This chart was used from 2010 until 2014 to accumulate the points you earned from what size of event and what place you got. At the end of the year, they would add up all your points, and who had the most points was the World Tour overall winner that year. Very similar to other World Tour competitions and how the Crankworx overall works right now at this moment. Now, mind you, Joyride or Crankworx Whistler was a diamond level event during this time, but Crankworx Les to Alps was a gold event. So Crankworx event wins today would most likely be scored as diamond events, but they could be gold. Emil did not competing until 2016, or the second year of the Crankworx FNB World Tour. For that reason, we're mainly going to focus on Brandon's numbers from here on out. In 2010, Brandon won Chattel Mountain Style, that being one of the 2 gold stops that year. In 2011, Brandon won 1 silver stop, 3 of the 5 gold stops, which would have been 26 Tricks, Claymore, the Bear Claw Invitational, and 1 of the 2 diamond stops, Joyride, Crankworx Whistler, and he finished first on the overall FNBA World Standings. In 2012, he won Jump Ship again, which was a silver event, and then 5 of the 8 gold stops and finished first overall. In 2013, Brandon won Les to Alps, which was a Crankworx stop at the time. It was a part of the Crankworx brand, and the Bear Claw Invitational, both gold stops, and then won Joyride again, being a diamond stop. He wasn't ranked in the top 10, which is all I could see. As far as rankings go, I believe he had a shoulder injury for the first half of the year. Brandon won Joyride and Red Bull District, which were both diamond events, and finished first overall that year. During this 5-year run, Brandon won 18 FNB Tour events, 11 being gold events, or 44% of the gold events, and 4 diamond events, or 33% of the diamond events, and won the overall 3 times. Mind you, only 5 of those 18 wins count as Crankworx wins. If we count his gold and diamond wins, his total wins go from 11 to 24. So I'm going to say that again. If we count his gold and diamond event wins, his total goes from 11 wins to 24, 2 times as many as Emil Johansen's 13 Crankworx events. This number is slightly bumped due to how many more events there were per season. Definitely begs the question though, what does it mean to be the most winningest slopestyle rider of all time? Because if we count all of those, I mean, Brandon's gone by a landslide. In my opinion, the only fair thing is to account Crankworx wins, FNBA diamond wins, and FNBA gold wins, since some of the Crankworx events were technically gold wins in the past, even though now they're all definitely diamond wins. So if we do this brings Brandon's bar to beat from 11 to 17 and a half. But since we can't have half a win, we'll just round down to 17. I think that's fair. So that would be 8 Crankworx wins, 4 diamond wins, and then 11 gold wins. We'll divide it in half to get 5.5, and we'll round down to 5. In conclusion, is Emil the most winningest Crankworx rider of all time? Of course, we've been over this. Is he the most winningest slopestyle rider of all time? I don't know. My gut tells me he will have to pass my sort of arbitrary number of 17 wins. But that's the problem of comparing these 2 athletes, is we don't know. For me though, I think that's a fair bar to set. I personally still believe that Brandon is the greatest freeride mountain biker of all time. And I think he will continue to be, even if Emil passes that bar. And I say freeride mountain biker, that includes Crankworx, the FNBA, Rampage, and all of his video parts. And I guess the overall impact he's had on freeride mountain biking. If we want to give slopestyle to Emil one day, I can live with that. I just want to give Brandon his credit that I still think he's a better rider overall. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Am I crazy? Am I a butthurt Brandon Semenuk fanboy? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Peace.